Good evening and welcome to Mayor Margaret Thomas, the Kalamunda councillors, ladies and gentlemen, and our live stream viewers at home to our Red Flags in Relationships event. Could you please all welcome the City's Mayor, Margaret Thomas, to the stage to say a few words.
Murray's taller than me. Good evening, everyone. I first would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we are meeting on this evening and share this message from the elders. Kaya kaya Brodias Mamanyok's Coolanga, Nuna de Mort, Nitcha Coolan Nalamaya, Kalamunda Budja, Yayi, Nandurapan, Wajilas Coolan, Jina, Nura Nitcha, Nuna da Budja, Yayi, Birda, Kadala, Birda, Kaya, Yunga. Hello, welcome to our leaders, men, women, children, family members who have come to our place today, and I'm happy to see you standing on Noongar land of their leaders, past, present and future. I would also like to acknowledge my fellow councillor, Councillor Cooper. It is my pleasure to be here this evening, and it is heartening to see so many brave and curious people come along. Before we begin, I'd like to extend my heartfelt thanks to our MC and host for the evening, Murray McKechnie from Kalamunda Kickboxing and Martial Arts, for bringing this fantastic concept to our city. I'd also like to express my gratitude to our two experts who are here tonight to share their valuable knowledge and experience, helping the women and men of Kalamunda lead safer, happier lives. And finally, I'd like to thank all the councillors who unanimously voted to host this event because it is such an important issue. And while some people may not think it is an issue for the city, domestic violence is an issue for everyone. I want to start by saying that domestic violence is a silent epidemic that impacts everyone. The signs of abuse are often hidden away for various reasons, and women may be unsure of how or afraid to seek help. We want to change that for our women, girls and men. So this evening's event is our community taking a stand against violence against women. Unfortunately, victims and perpetrators of abuse cross all postcodes and demographics. So this is an issue that reaches all parts of our community, young and old, male and female, and everything in between. Some people may think domestic violence isn't a real issue in the hills, that it's not our problem to fix, and they're not alone in that thinking. In fact, a survey completed by a national research body into women's safety showed that only 47% of respondents agreed violence against women was a problem in their suburb. So that's why the City of Kalamunda is proud to present this event to you. Violence can happen to anyone, anywhere, and we can all take steps to ensure the safety and well-being of our community. This event is also very timely. Earlier last month, the WA government launched its Coercive Control Education campaign. This is an issue that needs the support of all corners of our community, not just all levels of government, but also our GPs, carers, schools, clubs, churches, mums, dads and extended family. By working together, we strive to build a community that values safety and care and empathy. And before I hand over to Murray to introduce our experts, I want to thank you, our community, for being brave or curious enough to come along. We all have a role to play in making a change. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Thomas, for those kind words. I'm just going to bring the mic up now because I'm a little bit taller. First of all, I just want to say again, thanks to all the support. The the response we've had has been excellent, so thanks to all the people at home as well that are tuning in. My wife Michelle and I and our families have grown up in the hills for most of our lives. We've been to school up here, and we've settled with our family in the hills because we love our wonderful community. We have 5 beautiful children, 3 of which are daughters. A few years ago, our family was impacted by domestic violence. As parents, we couldn't do anything. We felt helpless. Unbeknown to us, the abuse occurred for 18 months and even occasionally occurred in our own home in the room next to us. I thought that being the scary martial arts dad that my family would be safe, especially my daughters, but I was so wrong. No one is immune from domestic violence. Recently, our community was affected by a violent domestic situation, and this needs to change. It's all too frequent. After promoting this event for many weeks, I've come to learn that a lot of us have a story. More and more people have discussed their stories with me, either from their own personal experiences or family and friends. Even this morning, my wife and I were discussing our experience, which still brings up raw emotions as parents. Why didn't I notice? Why couldn't she tell me? And the pain of not being able to protect your child. Domestic violence impacts everyone, and it lasts for a long, long time, if not forever. I'm passionate about helping to reduce the statistics on domestic violence and sexual abuse. I get asked regularly, do you do self-defence workshops for women? My reply is that these workshops are definitely beneficial and improve confidence and self-esteem, but I believe personally if we can educate, empower and upskill women in reading the signs of toxic behaviours and red flags early and leave these relationships, we can certainly make an impact. Although our goal this evening is focused on women, we would also hope to educate and inform young men to help them identify these behaviours, possibly within themselves or their friends. Tonight we have 2 speakers who will provide us with valuable insights into identifying toxic relationships and developing personal strengths to navigate life's challenges. I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Lorraine Sheridan. Dr. Lorraine is a global expert in partner abuse and domestic violence. Lorraine has an extensive experience in researching and identifying early warning signs of abusive relationships. Her presentation will focus on recognising red flags in relationships and understanding the cycle of domestic violence. Please welcome Lorraine Sheridan.
I don't know what you're trying to do. Thank you, clicker. So today I'm rooted to the spot. We did this last week in Forestfield and I frightened Murray to death apparently because I didn't realise there was this massive gaping hole in the stage behind me and I got this tendency to wander off and apparently I was hovering on the edge for about an hour. So Murray was in this cat-like state of readiness, weren't you, ready to catch me? But unfortunately I didn't fall, so nobody got a laugh. But there you go. Maybe in the future. I live to entertain. So yeah, I'm going to go on for about half an hour about how to spot the red flags at an early stage. And I really, really love what our mayor said. And I just wish every mayor and every local leader could have this level of wisdom. Because as the mayor said, so many people are in denial. It doesn't happen here. Oh, it happens in Gosnells, it happens in Armadale, it happens in Joondalup. It doesn't happen here. Well, I've worked in this field for a long time, and I work with a lot of people that are both the targets of and the perpetrators of this kind of thing. And I've done lots of research with the police, and I see the postcodes, and many, many times I have seen 6076. Nobody is immune. And you know, Murray told that heartbreaking personal anecdote. No, it's okay. I need to stop wandering off, actually.
No, do you want to roam with this one?
No, I can't be trusted to roam. Yeah, I'll stand here this time. I'll behave myself, I promise. Can't be trusted. I'll wander off. But, you know, Murray shared that really heartrending personal account there. And it is the case that it can happen to anybody. It doesn't matter who your dad is, who your mum is, who you are. I remember a case back when I worked in the UK, you can tell by the accent, I'm not from around here, of a fantastic man. He was in the special forces, the SAS, and he was a quivering wreck because he was the target of abuse. Similarly, not long ago here in Perth, a lovely woman who was a doctor, and it had happened to her. It can happen to absolutely anybody at any age. The youngest targets I've met, probably 12, 13 years old, of really quite sustained domestic abuse in a romantic relationship. The oldest person I worked with so far was 86 years of age. Nobody's immune. So, what are we going to look at? This is me. Murray's told you about me. You can look me up on the internet if you really care, but yeah, I spent years doing this kind of thing. And I did lots of years in research and training various people, magistrates, police, things like this. And I've also worked directly, as I say, with perpetrators and victims. And sometimes people who are both. It's not always a totally binary issue that, you know, somebody is always a perfect victim or a terrible perpetrator. Some people can be both. Okay, start off with a few numbers. As psychologists, we love a few numbers. So start off with top line kind of stats from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. What do they say? They say 1 in 4 women, about and around 1 in 14 men, will experience violence from an intimate partner in this country from the age of 15 onwards. So that's a lot of people. 2 and a bit million women, nearly 750,000 men. That's a lot of people. You know, we've not got that big a population. People often say when we put on events like this, what about men? Everything's all about women. Nobody listens to men. And I do have a fair bit of sympathy for that. Just this week, though, I've got 2 new publications out, you know, research papers with a great team of people in New South Wales where we're looking at lots of police data on coercive control in men, thousands of cases. That's all online. I can direct you to that if you ever want to see it. But there are differences between victimisation and perpetration, generally between males and females. At the lower level, you know, not that it is no low level, but compared to very serious violence anyway, at the kind of more less serious level for domestic abuse, there are a lot of mutualised behaviours. So we see a lot of female perpetration as well as male perpetration. But when we look at the very extreme end, very extreme injuries, fatal violence, death, then men are more likely to be the perpetrators. Part of that is because the way society is structured, and part of that is because generally men have greater physical power and strength than do women. 1 woman is killed in this country around every 11 days. 1 man killed about every 91 days. And, you know, we're in the year 2024. This shouldn't be happening. It should not be happening anymore. In terms of what I was saying about the more significant injuries, we do tend to see them in cases, as I say, perpetrated by males towards females. Another figure up there, about 2/3 of all women presenting at a hospital with physical assault injuries, those injuries were caused by an intimate partner. And in many cases, they are head injuries. So we're talking pretty severe injuries. But the impacts of domestic abuse, family violence, whatever you want to call it, lots of names, same kind of thing, roughly. But the impacts are not only physical, because so many people have said to me over the years, anybody that's worked in this space has heard the same thing. I wish my partner had actually hit me earlier on, because then it wouldn't have evolved into this miserable situation of weeks, months, years, and in some cases decades, where it built up over time. And because there were some good times as well as bad times, I stayed in the relationship, and it just evolved and evolved and evolved and evolved to a point where I realised I really was stuck. This is terrible, it's unacceptable, it's a horrible relationship, but I feel stuck. So if you see what I'm saying, people have said to me so many times, if I'd been smacked physically earlier on, I probably could have got out quicker. And also, people would have taken me seriously. You know, people say, oh, you know, you're complaining that, you know, he wants to see what you're doing, where you're going. He just really likes you. I wish I had that kind of attention. And often there's no real shared language for it. So people often don't recognise the slow beginning signs, which is why we're all here today. But other impacts, not just the obvious physical ones, emotional, psychological, social, and financial. So controlling money, monitoring somebody, watching what they eat, watching what they wear, not letting them earn their own money, etc., etc. And there's all kinds of financial implications in being in an abusive relationship. You know, my partner won't let me study, my partner won't let me go for a better job, my partner doesn't want me getting above myself thinking that I'm everything, my partner doesn't want me to have opportunities because that makes them easier to control me. Because obviously the more powerful the victim is, the less hold the perpetrator will have over them. So lots of financial consequences. Other problems, social. You know, if you really want to control somebody and isolate them, what do? You chip away at their social support network. You chip away at their community. You say things to them that make them question whether their family and those around them really do love them and care for them. And you just ensure that that person doesn't really have a support system. Because if you ensure that, then you're very much less likely to be caught. Emotional and psychological abuse, we're going to see more about that in a minute, but that's just things like denigrating somebody, knocking them down, making them feel that they're absolutely worthless. And I always say to people, you know, if you think that this couldn't happen to you, or you think it couldn't happen to somebody intelligent or clued up, think about this. Imagine if you spent all of your waking time dedicating yourself to ruining somebody's life, to gaslighting them, dominating them, controlling them, tricking them, ruining their support networks, all that kind of stuff. Imagine what you'd be capable of if you spent hours and hours and hours every week working on this for months, weeks, years, even decades. And the small person is welcome to chat away, by the way. I like listening to the small person, because it's otherwise a bit quiet in here. Small person is cool. Small person should come and have a dance up here. Stop me doing it. And the impacts are huge, 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 huge. I mean, generally we see a lowered and reduced quality of life. Somebody is just, oh no, I don't want to chase the small person away. I like the small person. Come back, small person, come back. So, you know, generally just like reduced well-being, you know, just a kind of crappier life. Anxiety and depression, you know, when we've seen ongoing domestic abuse, that tends to be pretty much everybody will have anxiety and depression. Post-traumatic stress disorder, and also complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which is slightly different. Post-traumatic stress disorder tends to happen when one big hideous thing occurs. You know, you're in a war or sexual assault, for example. But complex post-traumatic stress disorder, that's kind of like the death by 1,000 strokes. Just so many smaller but still significant traumas over and over and over. So that's complex PTSD. See it all the time. Just general stress and distress, you know, just running in that adrenaline-driven, fearful state all the time. That is not good for the mind or the body. Physical injury, obvious, and physical illness, less obvious, but we see a lot of people that are abused over time. The whole mind-body connection, you know, they're more likely to develop, you know, viruses and just age quicker. And, you know, all the other millions of illnesses and ailments that we can develop in the human body. And as I said before, the loss of opportunities as well. You know, a person can be raised up in the most wonderful family and have everything done for them, you know, the most perfect parenting, and then some perpetrator can come and strip that all away. You know, all the hopes, the dreams, the promise of this person, they can strip it all away. And obviously loss of friends and family. So it's not a very happy picture, is it? I'm sure everybody knows about the domestic violence cycle. As I said before, it is rarely the case that even the most hideous relationships are horrible 100% of the time, 24/7, 7 days a week. Like, what we often see is, we'll have a bit of calm, normal life, everyday life, and then there's a tension in the air. Anybody that's been in these situations very quickly can pick up on this feeling of tension in the air. Something's going to happen, I can feel it. Incidentally, in my field, psychology, we have a lot of tools like risk assessment tools, that people sit and fill in to work out the risk in a particular case. But recent studies show that even though that's a multi-million-dollar industry with a lot of these very fancy, risk assessment tools, they're often outperformed by people's feeling. So if somebody says to you, I can feel something's going to happen, I just feel it, I just know it, they're actually really analysing, with the complex human brain, millions of variables that a risk assessment tool could not. And so if somebody says to you, I can feel it, really do listen to them. So you'll have this tension, then there'll be an incident, and that can be anything. You like your phone more than me, or you were looking at that fella or that woman down at the beach today, and then boom, the tension explodes, something horrible happens. And then the whole, I'm sorry, and making it up. But of course, often that I'm sorry, let's make it up, is often tempered by the whole, I'm sorry, but if you hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have had to do that. And some forms of abuse are obvious, like physical violence. Sexual abuse is reasonably obvious, but not always, because people can slip into these relationships where, there's a real power imbalance in the sexual relationship. I just do what the other person wants to give myself an easier life. I don't really want to do it, but I'm used to it now. So sometimes sexual abuse within a relationship is not always obvious. And in the majority of countries in the world outside Australia, sexual abuse in a marriage is not illegal at all. Financial control. And that often starts slow. Oh, I'm just better at money than you and I earn more, so I'll sort it out, just give it to me. And again, that can happen really, 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 really slowly. It builds up over time. The difference between psychological and emotional violence, if you care about the difference, psychological violence is the mind games, the manipulation and the control, whereas emotional violence is the more obvious stuff, the threats and the insults. Anything that's kind of like done with an emotion. That's the difference. So how do we recognise them before things get bad? Until a couple of years ago, I think 3 years ago, I was working at Curtin University and I was working in the School of Psychology there. And every year we had lovely students that would come and do the psychology degree, and in the last year they do a big project. And I had a beautiful student, she didn't want a name attached to this, even though I told her she should have, but she said she didn't. And she did a lovely study where she went out talking to loads and loads and loads and loads, hundreds and hundreds, I think thousands, she did it online, a lot of it, of people that had been in a horrible relationship. And she asked really simple questions, like, looking back, retrospectively, when did you realise that the relationship that turned really hideous was dodgy? Looking back, can you pinpoint when it crossed a line? And she put them all in themes. And one of the big ones was love bombing. We hear a lot about this. And the problem with some of this is, we can't over-pathologise. So if somebody's really nice to you earlier on, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do hideous things later. But we see it a lot. There was a friend of mine in England, she used to be a police officer, Jane Monckton Smith, and she's a psychologist, criminologist or something now. And she went back looking at women that were murdered, loads and loads of cases, and she got heaps of reports like police data, news data, interviews with friends and family of and it was all women, of the women that had been murdered. And that enabled her to go backwards, and she found I think it was 8 steps to homicide. And I think it was pretty much everyone, if not all the cases, love bombing, excessive love bombing was number one on that pathway to murder. So somebody that is just really excessive, I won't bother reading all these out because people can read and you can have the slides and stuff to read in your own time. So it's just somebody that, they're just doing it too much. They're acting like we've been together forever already, or they're just kind of like pushing for this huge, massive ridiculous commitment, the love at first sight, and, you know, they want it all now, and they only met me like a week last Thursday. You know, if you think it's odd, it is odd. There's this good researcher over in the USA. He's a bit of a strange fella, but he's very good. And I've met him, and he wouldn't mind me saying that. I promise. One of the Beatles died at his house. See, really, he's a really interesting bloke. Anyway, Gavin DeBecker. He said that we've got this thing called the gift of fear. Like, your human brain has been millions and millions of years of evolution to get where it is now, you know. And your brain is a very sophisticated thing. But as we've evolved, we kind of put logic before feeling sometimes. And he said, hold on to the gift of fear. If you get that feeling there and it feels wrong, listen to it. Always, always listen to it. Always. So I like that. He wrote a whole book about it, but, you know, unless you want to give him money, you can just, like, do that bit, because that's basically what it says. He's going to sue me now, isn't he, if this gets on the internet? Gavin, you're really handsome. Anyway, so you know what I mean? If you think, if kind of like, maybe not 9 out of 10 cats, like 6, 7 out of 10 cats would think it was, like, excessive, probably is. All right, manipulation, what's that? Again, it's a bit tricky to define, isn't it? But we'll use handsome Gavin's gift of fear trick. Manipulation. The whole thing about making you feel guilty, messing you around, like it's basically uneven behaviour. You know, again, you can read them all yourself. You can all read very well. Maybe the small person cannot read excessively well yet, but I'm sure that will soon be the case. But for now, everyone else can read, you know. So just the guilt trips, the endless lies, and the, oh, if you don't do that, I will harm myself. That's massive, and that's in all the risk assessment things for domestic abuse. You know, I'll do something terrible to myself, because it's all about guilt. It's just basically manipulating your emotions. Just doing things with no darn good reason to try and make the person feel unsteady, you know, in an unpredictable state, you know, being hot, being cold. Basically, it's being really, really, really uneven. And control. I mean, again, that's an obvious one, but it's the whole thing. Like, you know, they're turning up the gas really, 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 really slowly in many cases. Just generally chipping away, like, oh, I don't like your friends. Oh, no, they're okay. And then a week later, oh, your friend looked at me funny, and your friend did this, and your mother, have you ever really thought about your mother? I was reading this thing online, and she's one of those narcissistic mothers, your mum, and she's this, that, and the other. Oh, if I had $1 for everybody that says that their partner is narcissistic, I would be so rich. True narcissism is, in fact, very rare. But it's not that rare amongst abusers. But the whole double standards, just everything that the person does, they're just controlling it. What are you doing? And then, oh, but you don't love me. You know, you're talking to your friend and I'm here all alone, sat on the sofa. I've been here for 8 minutes and you're like talking to your friend on the phone. So, you know, all that kind of atmosphere. And just trying to get the person really dependent. So what this is all about, what these have got in common is basically trying to make the victim feel small so the perpetrator feels big. And that's often why people do it, because these are people that get their kicks from, you know, shoving somebody down just to make themselves feel more mighty. It's miserable. Same kind of thing, you know, with the devaluing. Just kind of every little thing, knocking somebody down, undermining them, making everything they do look a bit murky or double-edged or miserable or suspicious. And again, I say to you, think about what you would be capable of if you really wanted to do this to somebody. If you really, 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 really put all your time and effort into it, you could be amazing at this. We all could. But we don't want to. Gaslighting. That's something that's often very much talked about. And again, it's something that is quite over-pathologized in some cases, in that people go, they're gaslighting me, when in fact they just forgot what they said. You know, we don't want to get into that state where we're forensically analysing what everybody said. We want to be more like handsome Mr. Gavin DeBecker in America's Gift of Fear, where we're just, are our spidey senses up? If you got your spidey senses up, probably tricky. So true gaslighting is, Why are you so upset? Nobody else would be upset by that. This is ridiculous, when they've gone out of their way to upset you, you know. And just false interpretations of events, just needling and wheedling to try and make somebody believe that they misremembered or they got it wrong or they misinterpreted something. And the whole reframing abuse as humour. I was only joking. But again, if kind of like 8 or 9 or even 7 out of 10 cats wouldn't find it funny, it's probably not funny. And it's probably gaslighting. Here's a cool thing I found on the internet a couple of weeks ago when I was getting all this ready. And I really liked it. Perpetrators of abuse, they often make victims believe they're somehow responsible for their own abuse. And that, of course, shifts the blame from the abuser to the abusee. You know, and it, very much like what I was saying before, like, I only do this to you because you, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, do all these terrible things to me. And they really, really magnify any mistake that the victim makes and massively minimise what they're doing. Because that's what they're trying to do all along. You know, minimise the chances of them getting blamed, caught, recognised by the wider population, and maximise their impact, their control on the person they're targeting. I love this as well. I didn't make that up, found it on the internet. He makes me feel euphoric, heartbroken, guilty, suicidal, worthless, and in love all at the same time. And I think that really encapsulates the age-old question of, why doesn't the person leave? You can just walk away. Well, good, you know, easy for somebody to say that, you know, thanks for the advice, but I'd say back to them, how could you leave if somebody has made it their life's work to drag you down, belittle you, make you believe that you're utterly horrible, when in fact you're often still in love with this person as well? There'll be love there, because like I said before, the relationship will not usually be absolutely horrific all the time. There'll be wonderful times. And people who say, when he, she, they is good, they're really good, and that's why I stay. But does that make up for all the times that you spent crying alone, full of self-hate and full of self-doubt? And I said that to somebody just the other week. And she said, yeah, but you know, I haven't cried for 3 days. And I said, well, how often do you cry? And she went, well, normally every day. So this, you know, this week's really good. Do you think it's good to be with somebody if they make you cry 300 days out of every 365? Because I really don't. But there's so many reasons why people do not leave. You know, they do come to believe what the abuser tells them. Humans are often pretty easily tricked. We really are, you know, we're quite easily tricked as a species. And, you know, again, good luck saying to somebody, well, you know, just take the kids or take yourself and just go. Yeah, because there's like 60 people applying for every rental, and that person may not be working, and they may have, you know, any of a range of other vulnerabilities. And what about the kids? I'll just keep it going for the kids. The kids need 2 parents. And people are afraid of the family court, often with decent reason. And people are afraid of retaliation. Because people who say, why don't they just leave, don't consider the fact that in a huge amount of these cases, it wouldn't end the abuse. Just walking out the house is not going to stop the perpetrator. Because if the perpetrator has made all this effort to control somebody, do you think they're just going to relinquish that control because somebody decides to walk out the door? I mean, it's human nature, isn't it? Like, if you make a big effort in something, you put a lot of work into something, you want a reward. Like, isn't that right, Maury? When people go up for the martial arts, they get their little reward at the end. They get a nice belt or something. You know, and it's nice. Because otherwise, you know, people wouldn't be so keen on doing it. It's human nature to want a reward. So, you know, like, oh, okay, you don't want to be abused anymore. Bye then. You know, good luck. You know, number one, that's the most dangerous time in a relationship, the point of leaving, by miles and miles and miles. That's the time when somebody is likely to get very, very, very hurt. And the other thing is, it will just evolve into stalking because people don't want to let go. So it will simply evolve into stalking. Boom, simple as that. There is a big link between partner abuse and stalking, And it gets really complicated by the criminal justice system that sees them still as entirely different things in the main. When I've been arguing for like 20 odd years that they need to consider them in the legislation and policing practices and the like as something that will often go in tandem or one after the other. Coleman, like back in 1997, a great American researcher, she said stalking is a core element of the cycle of domestic violence, which it is, for the reasons I've just stated. I said in something I published, stalkers most often target ex-partners, and stalking most often evolves from an abusive relationship. Boom. McFarlane, I think that was in 1993, quite a while ago, American researcher, she said, for femicide victims, you know, women that are killed by a partner or former intimate partner, stalking, and, yeah, almost all of the cases. And stalkers are very interesting people, particularly ex-partner stalkers. Stalkers can stalk for all kinds of reasons, but the ex-partner stalkers are the most physically dangerous because they get it in their heads that they're actually the victim. Strange but true, because they get this whole thing like, okay, I was in a relationship with John, and John left me, and I feel absolutely terrible. I'm heartbroken. I'm in distress. I can't eat. I can't sleep. I can't stop crying. All I want is John back. John's controlling me. John's controlling my emotions by leaving me. I'm the victim. So, sounds odd, but it's true. And what they'll do then is to justify that. I just need an answer. I just need to know. I just need to see them again. I just need to speak to them again. I just need one more chance. And then that flips over into, I want revenge. You know, I'm not having this anymore. This is terrible. It's unbearable. I need to do something about it. In the worst cases, that kind of thinking, what do we call it? Catathymic something. I don't know, bigger words than that as well. Big words, forgotten them, too late in the day. But that kind of cycle of thinking we often see in people that go on to kill their victims. It's that intense justification, the belief that they're being controlled, and that will develop into a belief eventually. Catathymic rage, that's it. Catathymic rage, just this belief that they've got to do something really extreme to feel peace of mind again. And funnily enough, when people do engage in those kind of murders, they do invariably describe this great sense of peace and relief that comes over them once they've done it. Okay, Suzanne van der Aar in the Netherlands, she pointed out in some good research a few years ago, a form of violent relationship, and she meant all kinds of, you know, abuse and violence, like financial violence rather than just physical violence. All that increases the risk that a person will be stalked, and people that had a prior romantic involvement, longer and more extreme stalking. I've been researching stalking since 1997. I am now very old. And I was a mature student. I'm that old. So that's how I started all this, by the way. I went back to university as a mature student of psychology. And when I got to do my final projects in my final year, stalking was all over the telly. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go down the library. Like, there wasn't much on the internet then. I went down, kind of didn't exist really, and I went down the library to look up all the studies on stalking. There weren't any. I was like, I'm going to do that. So I did a PhD, and then like 20 odd years later, 30 years later, I'm still doing it. But anyway, people talk about stalking versus cyberstalking like it's this totally different thing. And it isn't. Like, you know, I can barely think of any case of stalking I've seen over the last few years that didn't involve a cyber element, because everybody is attached to smartphones, laptops, whatever. And people say, oh, cyberstalking is not a big deal. You can turn off your computer. Well, good luck with that if you want to be a success in the modern age, and also why should you? And often stalking that starts online, you know, the offender will get a bit bored and they'll want to ramp it up, so it often does cross into the online world. But we did a study a few years ago, and we found a pretty amazing thing, that quite a few, still a minority, but still quite a few of these so-called cyber stalkers, that's probably somebody in America or Japan or Finland or something, that is targeting me, is often somebody that you know, pretending to be a stranger. And the impact's often the same because it's the same thing. You know, domestic abuse, stalking, cyber stalking, they all create this huge sense of uncertainty, the unpredictability, no idea what's going to happen next. So the impact's often the same. You know, the only good thing about the whole cyber stalking thing is if the police take it very seriously, then it's much easier to get a conviction because we have the evidence in the digital world. And there's loads of ways that people can do it these days. Like, even just a year or two ago, for an amateur to kind of use somebody's phone in order to listen to them and, you know, just to basically like spy into their phone and manipulate stuff inside their phone, they would have needed access to your phone. Then that kind of evolved into a thing where you'd need to send a link that the person would like accidentally or unthinkingly press on for you to get into their phone. But now it's evolved even further. There's zero-touch exploits. And like I say, even an amateur can use them to use a stranger's phone or anybody's phone or their ex's phone, anybody's, and get into it and listen to every little thing that they're doing. And this could be happening to us and we wouldn't know. We wouldn't know. And who knows what's next? We will see. And, you know, it's just too easy for people to do it. It may take a few goes and like a few different kind of software downloads, but most people could do it if they wanted to. Oh yeah, here's a cool thing. A few years ago, I bothered the nice people at the Western Australian Police, and I literally took them cakes and lollies and stuff, and I was really nice to them. And I said, look, I want to know, why is it that we've got so few stalking convictions in Western Australia? There's like a handful. And I said, I want to also look at your domestic violence convictions, because I reckon there's more there than the police data says, because, you know, there's so many, like, a couple of hundred of stalking convictions a year in WA, big place, WA, and a few thousand domestic violence convictions. But I thought, I reckon there's more going on. So I got the poor police, and this is why I had to bring them inducements. They had to go through 13,768 domestic violence incidents reports. They're the things when the police rock up to a case and they write all down what they see and they write a little thing on it. They do it on iPads now. And the police had to de-identify all of those so that I could look at them, and they did. And, you know, that's good. WAPOL really cared. They wanted us to research this. I say us, it was me. So, anyway, they got me all the domestic violence incident reports, and also any reports that even mention stalking in passing. Looked at it all, and inevitably we identified many, many broken restraining orders, sometimes hundreds of broken restraining orders in one single case. And people sometimes say, yeah, but why would I bother getting a restraining order? Because, like, they're going to break it anyway. Yeah, but if the police are on the ball, that then gives the police a little bit more power to kind of try and kick the ass of the perpetrator a bit harder. I don't mean physically. I'm not saying the way people are violent, like. I'm saying, you know, they've got a bit more power to, like, actually act in a case. And what we found was, basically, a minority of the people that had done things like stalking and to some extent domestic violence were actually charged with it. What we found instead was many, many people charged with these crimes, who had engaged in these crimes had been charged with a rake of different things. You know, malicious communications, threats, kidnap, driving dangerously to try and, you know, make somebody afraid or, you know, in terror. But there was like 200 different things that they were charged with, and this gave me some hope, which is why I'm showing it you tonight, because you think, all right, like the headlines, all the police data, there's not really, compared to the number of perpetrators out there, there's not really that many convictions. But like I say, it's often because the police are doing what they can in order to charge the person with whatever they can do at the time. It also speaks, doesn't it, to the multifaceted nature of these crimes, how so many things, so many individual acts can make up a course of conduct that's actually stalking and or domestic violence. Because they're unlike other crimes, aren't they? You know, many crimes mercifully are brief, like, you know, somebody robs your phone out of your hand. Seconds. Somebody burgles your house. Minutes, maybe. But stalking and domestic violence, weeks, months, years. And so because of that, a lot of the behaviour that the perpetrators engage in, the individual behaviours won't always be illegal. Sending somebody a text message, calling somebody a nasty name. But it's when you put it together, over time, it's a course of conduct. In the law, they often use something called a reasonable person test for crimes like this. Basically, if a reasonable person, like, you know, just like somebody sound and not daft, you know, was in possession of the information about this case, and they would say it was tricky, it probably is. So nice and broad. Because what they found in the past, that if in some places, particularly some US states, if they tightly define things like stalking and domestic violence, the perpetrators will just do something very slightly different. So it needs to be broad. So yeah, you can read that in your own time. But basically, are domestic abusers generally criminal? Some are, some aren't. Simple as that. You know, and people often kind of like use that as a bit of a litmus test and go, oh, well, you know, they can't be like a domestic abuser or a terrible person because they've got no criminal record. They were clean as a whistle. It's actually the case, and we've found it in the UK as well, that the people that are stalkers and domestically abusive who commit the very, very worst crimes and the most appalling murders had no criminal record at all. They just became fixated and obsessed. But other people that are domestically abusive can have a heck of a criminal record, but you know those kind of people that are just like generally high conflict and that have an argument, you know, with themselves in the mirror, like a budgerigar. Just like, you know, they're generally really antisocial, like the answer to everything is just violence and aggro. But some, basically, no criminal record, some loads. All different, not the same. Why do people do this? Because it causes so much damage in society. You know, look at the experience that our Murray had here. You know, the experience he described was not limited to one perpetrator and one victim. It's had an ongoing impact on Murray's family. And in so many cases, we'll see that, if not all cases. There are huge impacts on everybody around the person. They don't even have to live in the house. You know, because these people can target those around the victim, and just the emotional impact and the pain that people experience, as Murray did. You know, I felt terrible because I didn't realise. And then trying to pick up the pieces afterwards. And in some cases, you know, when we're seeing serious injuries and murder, that's going to affect a lot of people left behind. So why do they do it then? Whole bunch of reasons. You know, maybe they're just those people that just saw it all growing up and they've taken that on and they've said, look, this is how my mum and dad did it, and my grandparents and everybody before them. That does seem to be a factor, the research shows. But, you know, it may be a reason, it's not an excuse, though. Because there again, some people that come from the most appallingly abusive, violent families that are horrific, you know, from the day they were born, they end up beautiful people, really, really empathic. So it doesn't go to say that, like, if your mum and dad did it, you're going to do it. Not at all. Contextual factors. We saw this a lot in the lockdowns. Remember Melbourne had, I think it was the biggest lockdown in the world in COVID. So people were crammed in together. People lost jobs. They had no money. The suicide rate went up and domestic violence went up massively, just like pressures. See it in wars as well. You know, if people are in a war, they'll lash out against each other like, you know, cats locked up in a room. That, yeah, we're all the same. We're all mammals. Individual behavioural factors, you know, everybody's different. And some people, that one, it says generalised trait aggression. Some people are just aggro. You know, we've all met them. The answer to everything, like I said a minute ago, is just aggro. They just believe that violence is the answer to everything. Some people are just like that. And cognitive factors. once a person in particular becomes really, really fixated on somebody and they don't want to let them go, that's when you get all these distorted beliefs I was talking about before, that I am controlled, I am really the victim, thinks the perpetrator. So many reasons to do it though, you know, hatred, revenge, want to get back together, jealousy, blah, 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 blah. And often these swing as well, you know, so it's the proper like love-hate thing. You know, I love you, I want you back, I want to punish you for not liking me enough, or for not getting everything right, or for not being this idealised thing in my head. So it often swings as well in the same case. What time are we up to, Maury? How long have I been rattling?
All the time you need.
All the time I need, like 10 o'clock, shut the doors, we're going to go till midnight. What time is it really?
You're good. You're good to go.
Thank you. So I want to wrap this up then by saying, what should we do? I mean, I say, you know, to people, tell someone. But in many cases, people may not want to listen because it can be a heavy burden to lay on somebody. You know, it can give people the fear. So, and people just don't want to believe it. People like to think that everything's all right. And so if the person doesn't want to know or doesn't believe or invalidates you, but you've got a perfect life. Look at you, you know, you've got your like 5-bedroom house and your 2 cars and your beautiful children, this, that and everything. And he's so good looking. God, he's like the most popular kid in school. Everybody wants to go out with him. There's no way that he's like that. You know, if people don't believe you, if they don't want to know, tell somebody else. Trust your spidey senses at the back of your head. Emergencies, obviously. Phone, oh. Non-emergency, there's the police number. But my big word to you is to say, trust your instincts. You know, we've got these highly evolved instincts that we often ignore. Sometimes we need to be like deer, you know, be a bit hypervigilant to our instincts, to our spidey senses. And there's something I do with people that are being abused. It's called safety planning. You know, like when you're at school and you do like the fire alarm drill and, you know, you have to like do that thing where you all file out and queue up, like, you know, like we would if there was a real fire, that kind of thing. Always good if it happened in maths. I loved it when it happened in maths. It happened in art, I hated it. But it's a bit like that. So there's loads of things online, like if you just type into the internet, domestic abuse, safety planning, template, then there's a load of ones that are just, you know, little things to fill in. So, and they give loads of like advice and then you can tailor it to your own needs. So say, for example, what would I do in a time of crisis when the person's being violent? And the safety plan can have loads of little things like, you know, I'm just going to put the bathroom light on so my friend over the road knows to like do something to help me. Or I'm just going to make sure I'm positioned between trouble and the door so that I can get away so that I'm not cornered. So loads of things like remove knives from the kitchen, for example. Or say, you know, if the person's like following the victim around, ranting and raving at them, the victim at least has an opportunity to go to something like a bedroom rather than, say, the garage or the kitchen where there's weaponry or things that can be used more strongly as weaponry, or, you know, get yourself in front of a window. And things like planning to leave. These safety plans that you can put together just give really good advice. You know, squirrel a little bit of money away. See if you can dig out an old phone and hide it somewhere down the road and charge it regularly. Have an overnight bag of stuff that the perpetrator won't realise is missing. Squirrel that away, hide it somewhere, stick it at mate's house, put it in a bush. So loads and loads of things to do with safety planning and preparing to leave. You know, exactly, as I say, like we did for the fire drills in school. I think that's my last slide. Any questions? We're doing them all at the end, are we not? Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody.
So thank you, Lorraine, for that eye-opening and informative presentation. Your insights into recognising the signs of abusive relationships are invaluable. Now we will shift our focus from identifying external relationship challenges to developing internal strengths and resilience. Our next speaker is Brianna Harris. Brianna is an empowerment coach who is inspired by martial arts principles to bring you tools to rebuild your sense of self and courage. When vulnerable people have their confidence and independence stripped away, it's a long road back to finding strength from within. I hope tonight there are tools that you can take home today for yourself and to share with those around you. Brianna.
Thank you, Murray, for that kind introduction, and the City of Kalamunda for putting on this event and inviting me to be here today. Murray's also already introduced me a little bit, but a little bit of my background. I've been part of the martial arts industry here in Perth for the last 20 or so years, and specialised in empowering people to develop confidence, inner strength and resilience during that time. Martial arts is more to me than a sport or attending a self-defense class. To me, martial arts training helps individuals create an invisible armour, a shield that can help them through life's challenges. It has allowed me to build courage and confidence, test my limits, and expand my capabilities. The most important gift I've received from my martial arts, my training, has not been the physical skills or the knowledge I can defend myself, but strengthening my character and ability to stand firm in my boundaries and come back from setbacks. The principles I wanted to share with you guys today are from my experience in the martial arts industry and as an empowerment coach. I hope that you'll be able to take some or all of these and implement them for yourself or your families and see the great benefits that I've experienced and witnessed in myself and my clients. So, today I'm going to share 5 principles, and as much as I've taken them from my experience as a coach and instructor, I've tried to distill them down into their essence and allow you to be able to apply them to various situations, activities and lifestyles. So these are courage over confidence, the triangle of success, mental strength through physical challenge, words of power and the hard things rule. To start off with, the first principle I wanted to talk about was courage over confidence. Self-confidence is one of the first things that someone will inquire about or set as a goal when they decide to inquire about a martial arts training or coaching. And that in itself, there's no problem. I think we could all agree, we could all want to feel a little bit more confident in how we present ourselves or engage in the world. The challenge comes when we don't yet have that. Self-confidence is a feeling. It's a belief that we're able to handle ourselves in a certain situation or a scenario, that we're able to rely on ourselves. If we don't yet have that belief, it can be hard to step outside of our comfort zone and take on the challenges to grow and experience the best parts of life. Courage, in contrast, is an action. It's something that we do despite how we feel. Regularly experiencing challenging situations and pushing past our comfort zones allows us to practice courage and build the proof that we can rely on ourselves to act even in uncertainty, fear, or doubt, allowing us to take more significant challenges in the future. Focusing on leaning into courage and highlighting our courageous actions helps us see ourselves as people who can handle a wide range of situations and take action despite our feelings. As much as confidence is something great to strive for, focusing on courageous action can help us act when self-belief is lacking. The triangle of success describes 3 pillars that support and help lift people. It's all about building a support network and a safety net. Family, mentors, and community. When these 3 pillars work together, I've seen the most significant changes in how people see themselves, perform, and approach life. These networks can look very different for different people, and as we grow, they will change and grow with us. Creating the opportunity to develop these networks is hugely impactful. Lorraine talked about one of the red flags being isolation and control. Investing in developing a triangle of success can help us have a safety net to fall back on when we need it. Rebuilding or upgrading our triangle can be important when we experience significant life changes or changes in the way that we experience life. Family. So when I'm talking about family, I'm not just referring to our biological family, the family we're born into. Family can be created in many different ways. They are the people who provide us consistent support and guidance. They're the first point where we define ourselves, and the voices of our family often create our inner dialogue, the foundations of our values and examples of how we show up in the world. Our mentors can show up in our lives in many different ways. We can have aspirational mentors, mentors who have done what we hope to do. Although we may never meet them, these mentors could be people that we follow online, celebrities, or people that have succeeded in an area that we're developing ourselves. They can show us a pathway to follow, a roadmap to success. And knowing that it's possible for someone else can give us the knowledge that we can achieve the same thing in our life. We can also have mentors who are present in our everyday lives. They may be teachers, coaches, professionals, or even friends. There may be people who just appear in our lives or people we seek out. They provide proof outside of our family that you can do more than you think you can. They challenge the limits that you've placed upon yourself or that you've accepted from others, and provide accountability and guidance to push you to the next level. Community is all about our connections. We are the sum of the 5 people that we hang around the most, or so I've heard many, many times. I think it's true. If we hang around people that like running, we're probably going to do more running. If we hang around people that get up at 5 a.m, we're probably more likely to do that too. So our social connections and community can be the baseline for what we strive to be, what we see as acceptable, and who we compete against. The community could include our online community, the people we socialise with, and the people around us. As your goals change, you may need to adjust the community and the amount of time you invest in different ones. Finding a community that mirrors your values, actions, and the goals that you want puts you in good standing to be able to maintain these things in the rest of your life. A positive mindset, goal achievement, personal growth, and discipline can be hugely influenced by the community you surround yourself with. Creating opportunities to maintain a triangle of success can take effort, and that effort will pay off with a support system where each side strengthens the whole. We should strive to create networks that can be turned to in a time of need, provide insight and differing points of view. Can be trusted confidants who hold us accountable and encourage us to take action to create the life we want to live. Mental strength comes through going through challenges. To become resilient, you need to go through hard things. Mental strength is a gift that martial arts gave me. Sports and physical activity can provide a safe place to push your limits, build mental strength that can be carried into other areas of your life. Going through physical challenges in training helped me develop mental strength and an attitude to take on life's challenges. Whether it was speaking up for myself, upholding a personal boundary, or facing challenges in my life. The physical challenges I experienced in martial arts class allowed me to test my limits, forced me to face failure, and helped me to understand that I'm capable of more than I will ever know. Even as an adult, I often use these experiences from my martial arts training as examples of why I can do things in my regular life. As much as this is my experience, it's something that I've seen repeated time and time again. And I'm sure if we talked to Murray, he would have endless examples of this in his students' lives. I've seen it used as a pathway for people to rebuild how they see themselves after they've experienced something that has led them to lose their self-belief, allowing them to take back control and redefine who they are and how they show up in the world. Regularly going through physical challenges uses several mechanisms to help develop mental strength. These include overcoming adversity, Through facing and overcoming physical challenges, teaches us that resilience and perseverance can be applied in other areas of our lives. Building confidence through achieving physical goals, whether it's lifting a certain weight or running a certain distance, mastering a new technique or a move, can boost self-confidence. This sense of achievement can also translate into a stronger belief in one's ability to handle non-physical challenges. Stress management. Physical ability is known as a stress reliever. Managing stress through physical exertion can enhance your ability to handle other stressful situations. Improving focus and discipline. Training for physical challenges requires constant effort, discipline, and focus. Mind-body connection. Physical activity strengthens the mind and body connection. Practices like yoga, martial arts, weightlifting require a high level of mental engagement, concentration, and body awareness, which can improve cognitive function and emotional regulation. Dealing with discomfort. Physical challenges often involve discomfort. Learning to endure and push through this discomfort can strengthen your ability to handle difficult emotions and situations. Setting and achieving goals. Setting physical goals and working towards them reinforces the importance of goal setting, planning, and execution. Setting a goal, working towards it, and achieving it can strengthen mental resilience and the ability to stay motivated and focused. You can also build your confidence to be able to set those goals outside of that physical area. And social support and community. Physical activities are often done in groups or teams, providing social support and a sense of community. This social aspect can improve mental well-being and provide emotional support, enhancing our overall mental strength. I think we're all striving to be mentally strong. To get there, we need to find the right places to practice and build resilience, just like any other muscle in our body. Finding your sport or physical activity that connects with you and that you can commit to allows you to regularly practice the different principles of mental strength through that physical challenge. It's also important to note it doesn't have to be something that costs you money or you have to commit to a certain time or place. Even something as simple as practicing a few push-ups and increasing that over time, or working on a bridge and increasing that time, is going to tap into these different areas and help you build that mental strength. Language and words have a power and are sometimes something that we often overlook. Words play a huge and crucial role in shaping our experience of life. And the choices we make with our language have a huge impact on how we perceive and experience the world in several ways. Perception, you guys can read them yourself, the explanations, but perception, our emotions, identity, thinking, memory, and our reality construction are hugely influenced through the language and our vocabularies. The language we use and are exposed to can have profound and lasting effects on how we perceive and interact with the world. Lorraine talked about how language can be used to harm others, and we can also train ourselves to empower and redefine our experiences through our language. I was trying to think of an example that I could share with you guys, and the one that I kind of came up with was from when I was a little kid. And my dad would take us on adventures, me and my sister. And what made them adventures was the way he explained it to us. One of these adventures was to a scary beach, and we were only little. And the way I remember it was going to the beach, and we had to go for this long trek down the sand, and we finally got to this huge cliff coming out of the water. And we had to time it just right to get past this cliff to be able to continue the adventure. And I was the big sister, so I had to go first. And I timed it right and I got to the other side. So, success for me. And my little sister was to come next. And she wasn't as fast and she didn't quite make it. And in my mind and memory, she got washed out to sea and my dad had to go out and save her. And we were talking about this as a family the other day. And in reality, the wave came up and just touched her toes and she started crying. Completely different reality to how I remember and experience that situation. What made it different was the way that my dad had used language to create the memory in our mind. We made it an exciting adventure where he saved her, and it was fun, and Mum was a bit worried when we told her about it. But it can just show the power that language can have in shaping our memories and creating an experience that can be empowering or disempowering. So by practicing empowering language can help us change how we interact and experience the world. So I wanted to share some simple language swaps that you could practice to help empower your language. You might find that some of these connect with you and some of them don't, or you might find that you work on one at a time and change how you go. So some simple ones are replacing a negative with a positive. So instead of saying, I can't do this, or I'm not good at that, we could change that to something like, I can't do this yet, or I'm learning to do this, or I'm getting better at that. Use empowering language, things like I have to or I should. Make something a chore, and I know we don't like doing chores or jobs that are forced on us. So simply changing it to I get to, or I will, or I choose to, can make the thing that we're trying to do or experience more exciting. I have to go for a run, or I get to go for a run. Yeah? I have to do my study, or I'm choosing to study to become whatever it is that you're studying for. Being specific, I'm always, or I feel bad, can be big bucket terms that hide what's actually going on. Make it harder for us to face what we're feeling or experiencing. When we get more specific, it empowers us to be able to make the changes that we need to in our life. So instead of I'm always, it might be today, or it might be yesterday, instead of that always. I feel bad might be feeling frustrated or depressed or lonely. If we're able to name it more clearly, we can take more action to be able to change that situation. We could focus on solutions instead of problems. Saying something like, this is a problem, or I don't know how, could be changed to, this is a challenge. This is an opportunity. How can I do that? It gives us the power to find the knowledge to be able to make the change or do the thing that we want to be able to do. Using and instead of but. And has a power of cancelling out, but has a power of cancelling out whatever comes before it. I like your idea, but we all know really means, I think your idea is stupid. Let's do it my way, right? If I change it to and, I like your idea and can we try doing this? I like your idea and have you thought about that? Keeps the positive or what's come before and allows us to expand on that and create opportunity instead of narrowing things down. And speaking in present tense, I will versus I am. I will make a plan. I am making a plan. I will make a change in my life. I am making changes in my life. Simply switching the language allows us to be able to put something in the present tense, and our brain will actively work on that for us. If I put it in the future, my brain's going to file it under, that's a future me thing, instead of that's a me thing now. Upgrading and empowering our language can positively impact our mindset, communication skills, and overlook on life. Okay. The hard things rule is not mine. It's a principle that Angela Duckworth, who's a psychologist known for her research on grit, created. The rule is designed to help individuals develop resilience, perseverance, and self-discipline. I really like this rule and very much looking forward to implementing it with my family when my kids are old enough. At the moment, it's just for me. So the rule has 3 parts. The first part is that everyone in the family or for yourself must choose one hard thing to do. This could be anything. It could be learning an instrument, participating in a sport, practicing martial arts, or doing anything that might be challenging and requires effort or practice. The second part is must require you to practice consistently. This is about developing commitment. The rule emphasises that once you choose your hard thing, you don't quit midway. So you need to stick with it for a set period, such as a season, a school term, or a certain level of achievement has reached. This teaches the value of seeing things through and not giving up when things are tough. And the third part of the rule is that the activity must be self-chosen. So I can't choose Murray's tough thing. I've got to choose my own and he can choose his. This is crucial because it empowers individuals to take ownership over their decisions and commitments. When choosing your own tough thing, you're more likely to be motivated and invested towards the process. Implementing this rule in your family or for yourself can be incredibly beneficial. It teaches perseverance in the face of difficulty, builds discipline because you learn to work consistently towards a goal, and it also fosters growth mindset and an understanding that skills and abilities can be developed through effort and persistence. Implementing the hard rule encourages us to expand our comfort zone and commit to our goals and understanding the value of perseverance. So just before I finish up, I wanted to share the power of martial arts. Martial arts teaches self-defense and how to physically protect ourselves. Regular training also helps develop and strengthen crucial life skills like awareness, confronting challenging situations, enforcing boundaries and decision-making. To me, I believe it's a super sport that provides everyone that engages with it something different that helps them grow and gain what they need to move forward in life. There are 5 principles that martial arts have. These include physical fitness, mental strength, emotional ability, strengthening spirit, and social connection. A lot of the things that Lorraine talked about that are red flags can be strengthened through martial arts training. Martial arts has changed my life. It helped me develop the courage and provided me with a community. As an instructor, I've seen countless examples of how martial arts has changed the lives of those that train. If you've ever considered training in martial arts as an option or something that you'd like to explore, I'd highly recommend you take the opportunity to do it now and not in the future. That's all I had to share with you guys today. I hope you've gained some insights or some things that you can implement in your life to help build your self-empowerment and courage. And I just wanted to thank the City of Kalamunda for the opportunity to present with you all and hand back over to Murray. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Brianna, for those empowering strategies and insights. Ladies and gentlemen, we've had 2 powerful presentations this evening. Lorraine has equipped us with the knowledge to identify toxic relationships and their warning signs, while Brianna has provided us with tools to build our inner strength and resilience. Together, these presentations offer a comprehensive approach to relationship health and personal growth. Just to add about, obviously, for Brianna, her strength and resilience and confidence has been a result of martial arts. But it doesn't matter what sport you do, if you surround yourself with positive people, they will help guide you and support you. And like you said about challenging yourself, doing something that you didn't think you could do. I know there are people in this room that never thought that they could do some of the things they did, and they found that strength to do that. So it's not just about martial arts, it's about engagement in other sports, something that, like you said, you can get the resilience from, challenge yourself. I guess one of the key things I've always learnt, and I was taught a long time ago, was have the courage to fail. It's okay to have a go and fail, but it's not okay to not have a go. So get that confidence to challenge yourself in anything out there so that you can gain these valuable things that Brianna was talking about. So thanks for Brianna. So now we'd like to open up the floor for any comments or questions you may have for our speakers. This is your opportunity to delve deeper into the topics discussed or share your own insights. If you'd like to ask a question, you can raise your hand if you'd like to speak, and we will bring a microphone to you. But we'll also be using the Mentimeter for live questions during the presentation. Anyone joining via live stream can also join in the Q&A using Menti. Just visit menti.com and enter the code you see on the screen, or simply scan the QR code with your phone. The code will remain active throughout the Q&A session, and you can submit questions at any time. Audience members, you can also ask anonymously using your smartphone or devices to make it easy to participate. So if we can have the lights just come up so we can see a few people in the audience. There's a couple of questions that have come through, so I might just start. The first question is that someone has asked online: is there a connection between bullying and domestic violence, Lorraine? Hang on.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, like, it's not a complete thing where you could, like, overlay one to the other in that, you know, people that bully are more likely to be domestically abusive. But there's definitely a link, you know, because they both have the same kind of character traits and that whole issue I was talking about of, like, you know, a need to dominate somebody. So people that bully are more likely to be domestically abusive, but it's not inevitable.
Okay. Is there anyone else out there? Marilyn, are you walking around with a mic or... Who, sorry? Mandy, sorry, I couldn't hear you over there. Mandy, do we have anyone in the audience who'd like to ask a question? Just raise your hand.
My question is to Brianna. With your history of martial arts, is there, in your opinion, an age group which would most benefit kids or teenagers or young people to start in martial arts practice, which could possibly have a more impactful success in avoiding these types of future abuse or relationship problems or patterns of behaviour? Would you suggest there is a specific age group where it would be more beneficial?
Not necessarily. I think from my experience, like I've taught 3-year-olds and they get a certain skill set which is appropriate for a 3-year-old. But starting a little bit later is probably going to give them the lessons that they're learning are going to be more targeted towards these kinds of things. I started training when I was about 13. I think that was a great age for me to start training because I was able to be experienced training with adults, and the themes and topics we talked about and were made aware of were probably a little bit more aligned with this, whereas the younger kids we're talking more about confidence and courage, being a good person, how to deal with bullies and things like that. At the same time, starting too late, there seems to be a drop-off when we get to like the later years where kids kind of disengage with sport. So we want to get in there before that happens so they stay committed throughout their teenage years into young adulthood, into adults. But I've also taught students that started training at 3 and are like adults that are still training at 20-something. So I think knowing your kids or the person that you're getting engaged with is important, but getting in before they're in those later teen years, it would probably be ideal. Like 10, 11, 12 would probably be a good age where if this is the thing that you're looking for them to get out of it. In saying that, sometimes by then they've already got their sports that they're committed to. So that kind of answers the question and not. Knowing your kids and getting them engaged early, I think, is better than later. My daughter's 3 and she's just started, so I'm hoping she'll be still doing that at 30-something, like me. Murray might be able to add a little bit.
I just don't think you're ever too late you're never too old to start. Again, everyone comes through for different reasons, and it depends. What's that? Sorry. There you go, superstar. I guess everyone has a different reason. I guess what we love about the martial arts world is that everyone has their own different reason for being there, and it's our job. I guess at the gym, I'm not going to have a go at the gyms, but you go in, you do your thing, you're a bit of a number, you go in and you do your thing and out you go. Whereas in the martial arts community, it's very personal. We get to know you personally, and the reason for you being there and your goal is what we work together to strive. So if it's self-esteem, or if you're new to the area, or if you want to join the fire brigade and you've got to get the fitness up for it, we work together to help those goals. So where it's empowering for us is seeing people come in as one person and then they leave a better version of themselves. Does that
Or
make
never
sense?
leave.
Or never leave. So yeah, I hope that answered that question. Anyone else there? We can see questions. Yes? Down the front. Olivia, I know Olivia. Is this a fishing question, Olivia? Fishing question? Okay.
If we can see some red flags in the relationship of a friend or family member, how should we go about approaching that with them?
Yeah, like that's the brilliant question. It's like the hardest one of all. And what I found working with people is often if you just try and point that out, they'll get really defensive. Like, nope, 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 nope. You know, it's different for me, and they'll just shut down on you. But my advice, and you know what the research tends to show, is that we need to be a bit persistent. So don't go trying to hit people on the head because you'll just chase them away. So say something, and if they don't want to know, back off. And then a few days or a week later, try again. And say, I can't help but notice, but... And the problem is you probably sometimes will get a step forward, but then there'll be a couple of steps back. And sometimes people might admit to you that it's a bit tricky, but then they'll be back into the clutches or, you know, head back into the sand because people don't want to admit they're being abused. And so they'll retreat again. And then the best thing you can do then is just to let them know that, okay, if you ever want me, I'll be here and I'll meet you where I am. I won't kind of like keep inflicting myself upon you. I won't keep nagging you, but I'm always going to be here.
Thanks, Olivia. Great question. I'd like to throw Nick in the mix here. So Nick is one of our local police officers, and I really appreciate him coming up and being here. I guess the question for you, Nick, is that what evidence do the police need
Good question.
in this situation? Can we just pass to Nick? Because Nick lives this every day.
Yeah. Basically, when we need to prosecute something on a family violence or a domestic violence incident, we need a victim. We need a victim for everything. Now, sometimes it's very difficult for the victim to come forward and actually report that. There's a great setup now within WA Police, and I can guarantee I've been a police officer now for 18 years. I spent my first 6 years at Gosnells, which then, at that stage, back in the early 2000s, had the highest domestic violence rate in Australia. There's been great leaps in police reporting and the way we deal now with domestic violence. It's very much swung in the favour of the victim. They're teaching more things in the academy and everything. But the bottom line for everything is we need a victim to come on board. Now, there is a lot of support out there for them. If they want to come on board, we will help them, we will help them. Even if they refuse to make a statement and that we can't put the matter to court, a report will still be taken. And if there's been an allegation, an assault or anything like that, if we don't have a statement, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to go to court. The report will be filed because later on we say it happens again to that same victim, and eventually they say, enough's enough, I'm going to provide a statement. All those reports are online. You've obviously seen that, Lorraine, with the number that you've gone through. All the reports that are made when it comes to domestic violence, in fact, or any crime, they remain online. And they can be reopened. There is no statute of limitations or anything like that. So if somebody makes a report about domestic violence, or if, for example, just going into that previous question, if you've got concerns about somebody that you believe is being abused, or there is an incident of domestic violence, you can report that to police. It doesn't necessarily mean a lot's going to be done, but at least you'll feel better within yourself knowing you thought something was happening and you've made a positive effort. Police can put a report on for anything, just for information purposes, but that report will stay. But the bottom line is, if it's going to go through to the court, we will need a victim statement, and we take it from there.
Would you also suggest any other sort of evidence that someone could collect, whether it's photos or copies of text messages? Or, I mean, would you say that the more information you can collect, obviously the better? Is that what you're...
Well, yeah, the more information you can provide. I'm not going to name any names, obviously, but I had a lady come in today, and she had this record of abuse that she said, and I said, can you provide evidence of it? And she gave us all the screenshots. Now, it came up from a private number, but she says that is definitely his number. I says, that is not a problem. We can get the phone, we can do what they call an IP&D check, so we can go back. There is a lot of stuff there. She had photos of abuse going back for 3 or 4 years, yet she'd never reported it, but she'd obviously concerned enough that she documented it all and had it all, and she provided it to us. So these are what we call historical abuse reports, and they come to us. We take a basic report, we will take a statement, and then something like that normally goes off to the FV team, so the family violence team, which is based in Midland, which has rotating officers going through, and then they follow it up, because they've got, if it's historical, that normally goes back down to them or to the detectives or something who've got more time to do it. Frontline officers will go to an incident, they will deal with that incident there and then then put that report on, and then it normally goes for follow-up with someone else.
Okay, thank you. I guess coming from that, and something's just come to my mind, is that, okay, so let's say someone's in an abusive relationship and they're screenshotting text messages, it's in their photos, and the perpetrator, in most cases, have access with that control to the phone and all that sort of stuff. So I guess in my mind, is there a way that someone could actually store this information on their phone where that person can't look in it? Like, you know what I mean? I'm just asking that question. I mean, if you've got all this evidence in your phone and someone is opening up your phone and looking at it, is that going to cause you more risk or potential more harm because it's there? Is there a way that these photos can be taken, uploaded somewhere or stored somewhere, I guess maybe with a trusted friend, where then they're taken and then they're deleted or something like that, so that it's not actually physically on that person's phone? Has there ever been a chat about that?
Nick says that their system is just amazing. It's absolutely brilliant, because an issue for years was the whole joining the dots thing. You go to the police station on Monday and tell the fella something, and then you go the next week and tell them a bit of something, and it didn't join the dots. But your system, I think, is cloud-based, isn't it? So
yes,
a person could
it is now.
put it there.
Yeah.
So, they don't need to keep it on the phone. They're like, that's it, shove it up there, delete it off my phone.
Yeah, you can do that. I'm probably the last person you should be asking a technical computer question about. I normally get one of the kids that comes out with me. I said, look, I'll deal with the physical side and everything. You do the computer bit. But yeah, there's ways and means of doing that. You can upload it to the cloud. We now send out what we call a DEMS link, so we can send somebody a link, a personal link to them, and it's just to them, and they just put all their stuff on it, and it comes through to us, and it gets stored.
Fantastic, thank you.
It's brilliant, isn't it? Can I just say one more thing with the evidence? I often find that people say, oh, well, I didn't give the police that bit of evidence because I didn't think that was illegal. And I imagine that you see that as well. Some people think they can only go up to the police with, evidence of something that is illegal in a separate crime, like threats or violence.
I love illegal evidence. It's some of the best things that come forward. We might not be able to use it in court, but what it does is it paints a picture for us, and that's it. It's a lot of crime. It's like not necessarily domestic violence now or something like that, but burglaries. The amount of burglaries or incidents that we have, we've gone out and they said, oh, well, this actually happened to the neighbours as well, and that, but they didn't report it because nothing got stolen. I says, well, that doesn't matter because police work is a bit like a jigsaw, and same as these red flags and everything, we need the pieces, and once we get all the pieces and put them in place, the whole thing is clear, and that's what we need. So as I said, illegal evidence or evidence that, how the hell did you get that? We don't mind. We'll have a look at it. It can't cloud our judgment, and obviously certain things cannot be used in court, but what it does is it paints a picture, and it's the same with anything.
Fantastic. Just another question that has come in from online. I was in an abusive relationship for years. I'm now in a new one, but I haven't shared anything I went through. When should I? So someone was in a previous relationship.
I see that, but I think, you don't have to, but it's difficult, isn't it? Because then you think, you might be frightening somebody away. Because people have a sense of shame attached to it still. So they might think that, if they go around telling a new partner that, I was a victim before, I was in a horrible relationship, they might feel that they're somehow polluted or that their new partner won't want to know them. So I think you can wait as long as you like. And I do think then if the person said, well, why didn't you tell me? And then throws that back at you as if you're to blame, and it makes you somehow a bad person for withholding information, I'd say the new relationship wasn't great either.
Cool. Anyone else in the audience just has a question? Yep.
This is just another question for the police officer, Nick. If
Poor Nick.
somebody is actually has been in a domestic violence situation and they do not want to make a report, because they do not want that to sit on that person's record, for example, if they make a report, would it be not disclosed to the person who had been the perpetrator? And I guess my question is it worth making that report because then it sits on the record so that if that person having left is in a dangerous situation later and needs to call for police assistance, that it would somehow or another generate a faster response because it came up on the system in some way?
If somebody makes a report, it's not a criminal record for a start. The only people that see that are police themselves. So it goes, a report is generated. If we don't have an allegation of a criminal offence, i.e. an assault or anything, we don't have to speak to the suspect. So we get people coming in, they want to make a general report and just say, look, just for information purposes, we want to say this has been occurring, it's this and that, I've just got a bit of an uneasy feeling about it. It can just be put on for information purposes. Once a report has been put on, we can't take it off. Yeah. And if an offence has been basically categorised that an offence has occurred and a victim has provided a statement, we then have to speak to the person they've nominated, i.e. the suspect. That is the only way that report can be filed. We can't have somebody coming in and making a statement, and especially not in family violence incidents where obviously we now know there's a lot of coercion involved and they're scared, or there's pressure on them to prove it, a lot from family members as well. Say, oh, why have you done that? What's going to happen now? If somebody provides a statement and evidence of assault, we have to deal with the suspect. We have to speak to them. It doesn't necessarily mean they've been charged, because we know there's two sides to every story in every case. And I'm not saying this is a general rule of thumb, but we do have certain parts of the society that will come in and make these allegations and everything and this and that and say, this has occurred, this is what's occurring now. We still have to follow up with it, but information that we've already received from other family members, witnesses, say, well, this isn't quite the whole picture. Unfortunately, if you come to police and tell us something, we have to do something about it. That's the bottom line. But it won't be held against somebody. A report to police is a report to police. It's not a criminal offence. Nobody else sees it. Yes, it's good to have that information if something else occurs at that place. And there's a lot of things we can now do for victims of family violence. We can put alerts on their house. We can put alerts on the cars. We can upgrade response times, or try to upgrade response times, because the alert flashes up. This is a serious family violence location. There's duress alarms that we can provide to victims. There's a lot of support out there that can be done.
But what's required to get the alert put on the house?
Well, it depends. It depends what the allegation is. If there's an allegation of serious, then obviously to have an alert put on a house or something like that, there must have been something that's happened that police have had to follow up on with before. So like a previous incident perhaps, or previous dealings with the parties at that house, or anything like that. And then we put that alert on. It doesn't go on just willy-nilly, just generally. But there will be alert. And if people have a history of family violence, it does show up on their system to us. That's it.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Nick. We'll leave you alone for a bit now.
That's right, mate.
I guess for Lorraine, another question we did get asked last week, and I'll ask it again, is can people change, Lorraine?
You know what, sometimes I work on quite a few cases involving families, and often I see people that will speak up for an alleged perpetrator when I'm interviewing a lot of people for one case. And even when presented with incontrovertible evidence, for instance, you know, a history of charges by police for being a very, very seriously domestically violent offender, the new person they're with will go, well, but it's different for me, or, you know, he's explained to me that it was his 7X's fault, etc., etc. And I think, you know what, I'll see you again in a few months as a victim. You know, it's just one of those situations where they just serial fashion, every relationship will
So to
break
add to
out.
that, how do you help someone who has a pattern of jumping from one abusive relationship to another?
But just kind of skip back. Could I jump back to can people change? But sometimes people do. And I'm just thinking of one particular person that I saw about 10, 15 times earlier this year. And he was ready to change. You know, he got to that point where he realised that what he was doing was terrible. And what he had to do was just to stop and take a really deep, hard look at himself and make that admission to himself that I've done some really crappy things. And it wasn't because she wound me up, and it wasn't because of life circumstances and intolerable stress. It's because I just have been...
Terrible.
Yeah, and I have been kidding myself and everybody else. And he got to that rock bottom point. You know, the way sometimes people talk about rock bottom with drug addiction, which is not entirely true. It's normally a number of factors that force people to change from drug addiction, but just it's still the same concept, right? All the factors come together, and there's that recognition that I am really not good, and it is my bloody fault, and I really need to turn myself around. Some people can change, but it's like everything else. You know, like say, you know, like any kind of addiction as well, or there's loads of circumstances, but some people can change, but we do, and I'm sure Nick will tell you, because yeah, we've both looked at the police data, you see the same bloke again. And sometimes, you know, woman as well, you know, there you go. Oh, and I've seen them in the road in a new relationship. They're going to be back. The new one's going to be back in the station. It's an inevitability.
So people that have been in an abusive relationship that end up in another abusive relationship, how do you...
Yeah, people do that all the time, you know, because various reasons. We've all got our various vulnerabilities, and some people have that thing where they've got that rescuing need and they feel they have to like kind of like go around with a naughty person. Some people like a bit of excitement, and some people are just basically been manipulated since they were very young into that pattern of believing that they don't deserve any better. And there's just loads of reasons why people jump into one relationship to another. And it's really difficult to tell somebody that. Because, again, you know, it's like getting... Same kind of principle. I don't mean that this person is bringing it on themselves in any way. Victim blaming is ridiculous. But it's that just same kind of pattern that a person has to recognise that it might be something in them, their decisions, their circumstances, you know, some abuse that's been whacked onto them that has made them repeat this identical pattern. But often I see people just think they don't deserve any less. Sorry, don't deserve any more. And it's really difficult because it means a fundamental change. But there are, and I'd say chuck the person into therapy, but speaking as a psychologist, I know how ludicrous it is and how expensive it can be to get and see a therapist. But there's really, really good stuff online, and, you know, Women's Aid and the likes of that and other charities and other organisations will give time, effort, resources and attention to those kind of cases, because like the police now, there's been a shift to looking at prevention, not just responding to victimisation.
Okay. And a lot of this stuff will be available from the City of Kalamunda after tonight. And so just one, we'll have last two questions. Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to ask a question before we go to the last one?
Oh, this fine individual here.
We have the young man in the middle.
A very fine fellow.
I'm curious to know what this will be.
So I've got a question for Nick. Yeah. Sorry, another question, but sorry.
Poor Nick.
Poor Nick.
Can sexual assault allegations be used against the perpetrator in court, or does it have to be proven?
Good question. So difficult.
Trying to trip up Nick.
Thanks, mate. If somebody has been accused of sexual assault, obviously, or any other crime, for example, obviously an investigation goes ahead. And before anything gets to court, we have to have the evidence to get them to court. So if somebody's been accused of sexual assault and there is evidence of that, it goes up to court, and the perpetrator or the suspect, because everybody's innocent until they're proven guilty, it will be used against them. Yeah, if that's what if they've been charged with a sexual assault, that is the charge they've gone to court for. You can't be charged. They can't. Somebody make a report of sexual assault and they say, "Oh, well, we'll scrub around that. We'll charge them with something else." We charge on the evidence that we've got, and that will be a full investigation. And for things, especially like sexual assault, it can be historical, it can be just something, and there's a lot of evidence that needs to be attained. We don't send people to court without evidence, because then we look stupid and it's a waste of everybody's time. But that's because we try to go to court to win for the victim. That's the whole reason we do it for. Doesn't always work, and we know the pendulum swings both ways, and unfortunately, we have to prove beyond reasonable doubt that an assault, a sexual assault, or any other crime has been committed. And there's probably a lot of smart-ass lawyers out there that make a lot of money out of manipulating things, so there's that element of doubt that creeps in. So that's why we're very thorough as a police force in getting all the evidence that we can, so that we can nail the evidence down pat, so that there's no loophole for the suspect or the perpetrator to get out of.
Thank you very much, Nick. We've had quite a lot of questions coming through, and I'm sure we're going to be getting more, and we'll endeavour to answer those in the future, in the next couple of days, through the city.
Definitely, yeah.
Lorraine and Brianna's information is available from the city, so we'll make sure we get that to people. Just another question, I guess the final question for Lorraine, to let her off the hook, is, this is coming from online. The honeymoon phase of a relationship can look a lot like love bombing. I guess that affection, that passion and all that sort of stuff, how would you distinguish between the both? when does someone's, I guess, I'm trying to explain this question a bit better, when is it acceptable for all the affection and the attention, and when would you say it crosses a line to become more love bombing?
The fundamental issue there, Murray, is control. Because if love bombing is done, so the honeymoon phase is done, and, it's all beautiful and there is a lot of love, and some people are made of money and some people are very generous. Like I said before, let's not over-pathologise everything. But if there's an issue of control there, it's like, I've given you all this and I immediately demand all of your attention all of the time. You will only look at me, literally, and sorry, I couldn't help it. And, don't look at anybody else. I'm doing all this stuff for you. I am throwing all these love bombs at you, but you must only gaze back at me and nobody else. That sudden shift into, you are mine already.
Fantastic. All right, well, we're going to have to probably wrap it up. I mean, I'd love to stay and chat longer, but just, again, this is separate. I haven't written this on there, but I will say that I can see a lot of young teenage ladies in the room, and I really am so grateful that you could come up and you found the time and the courage to come up and just be in the room. As a dad, one thing I always try to teach my daughters was be with someone because you want to be, not because you have to be. And I felt that if we could empower our daughters to be able to do everything, whether it's driving the boat, pitching a tent, changing the tyre, cooking up the camp, barbecue, doing whatever, that they don't ever need anyone. And I want them to be empowered and be confident to be able to do everything, so that they didn't need someone, but they wanted someone. So they didn't need to be with anyone because you're independent, confident, assertive young women. And I think that in our situation, I possibly believe because our family member was so great at doing lots of cool things, that I think someone might have felt a little bit insecure. And the only thing that they could get over that person was a bit of power. And that's where the physicalness came into it. So a lot of the things we've been talking about, especially with Brianna, and I'm not touching back on that, is if you are a confident, assertive, courageous young woman and you are capable of doing so many things and challenging yourself to step outside your comfort zone, ask questions, try this, fail at that, mess that up, get that sorted out, but you are capable of doing everything yourself, then the person that you want to be with is just a plus to your life. You don't need them because they change a tyre or they cook for you or they can do this and that. Be your own person, and then the right person will come along and they'll add to your life. So that was the advice we always gave our girls about be with someone because you want to, not because you need to. So if that's the only takeaway I could give for some of you ladies today, that's the best thing I could possibly say as a dad. And it's a proud dad moment when you see, your children, at a younger age, doing all the things that you didn't think they could do, but you've coached them over the years of growing up to be those sort of people. So for the ladies and the younger teens in the room, don't let dad do everything. If he's doing something, get out there. If mum's doing something, get out there. Hey, can you show me this? Can you show me that? I'll sort that out. I'll sort this out. And just create your own journey and be confident. And that flows into so many other areas of your life. So in finishing, a really big final thank you to the Mayor, Margaret Thomas, the city councillors that voted for this event unanimously. It was amazing that they saw how important this was. The staff at the city of Kalamunda, because a lot of people behind the scenes that have put this together, as well as the amazing Dr. Lorraine Sheridan and the awesome Brianna Harris from Lifeproof to bring this event together. And if you'd like to stay back, if you have to go, we'll let you go. But if you'd like to stay back and just bounce some more questions of us, you're more than welcome to. But thank you very much for giving up your night tonight and coming out. And I hope that, I've learned so much in the last couple of months by working with both Lorraine and Brianna, and I hope that you get as much out of it as what I have. So Thanks very much, and I'd like to give these ladies a round of applause.
And thanks also to Musa, who brought it all together. Come on.
Thanks, Lorraine.
The man, the legend. And last but not least, big thanks to poor Nick, who was amazing. Absolutely brilliant.
Nick tried to come in here incognito, but there's no escaping Nick. You're a great part of our community. You're one of the best, so thank you. All right, thanks everyone.